are wondering whether what she did 52 years ago should be relevant today. In 52 years, we should have solved this problem. I am so determined that we change the education system in this country. I am so determined that we change what we're educating people to believe. There's only one race on the face of the earth, and that's the human race.
What's going on, everyone? It's Sauce Kenny here today, and we're reacting to a video from Jane Elliott's brown eye, blue eye test, right? And so this lady's famous for being the mother of, I guess, diversity, right? And she's introduced this idea, this test, and to me, it's just propaganda. And it just, all it did was change the criteria of discrimination, right? Now, you're saying it's not okay to discriminate against black people, but it's okay to discriminate against white people, though. This seems to be the ideal of the brown eye, blue eye test. And I think that if you're really serious about eliminating prejudice, you shouldn't just change the requirements of prejudice. You should just try to eliminate prejudice from the beginning, right? You've seen in the beginning of the intro that she says all the right things, but the way she goes about it actually produce a result counter to the vision that she casted out in the intro of this video. And I'll kind of point out some of these things as a conservative. I'll point out some of the things and why I agree or disagree with her stances on certain things. And here is Jane Elliott.
Telephone was ringing. I answered the telephone. My sister said, "Is your television on?" I said, "No." She said, "You better turn it on." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because they shot him." I said, "Who do we shoot this time?" And she said, "Martin Luther King Jr." And I couldn't for a minute think that the world was still spinning.
This is a human ego, right? And it's just sort of self-centeredness, and I think this is where like my conservatism kind of comes in, is because you're part of a society, you're part of a family, you're greater than just yourself, right? In a way, right? Being part of something greater than yourself in a way, like you're part of a community. Conservatives recognize that. So to have this idea that one man will stop the world because he dies, and to me, in my view, I think this is what stopped Black America in the first place, because Black America let its leaders do its thinking for it, instead of it saying, hey, we think it's just Martin Luther King's the representative of this movement, right? And this is where I think was the flaw in all this, and this is why people are able to disperse all these movements, and they end up becoming chaotic messes after the fact. Because I remember those riots after Martin Luther King died, right? And it caused more harm for the Black community than good, right? Like, if without their leader, they didn't know how to respond to trials and tribulations. They didn't know how to respond in a way that will make things less bad in a way, right? Because they already took out their leader. You don't want to make it worse and compound that effort by, causing more damage and giving them almost a reason to retaliate against you, right? And I think this is why I think in 2023, the era of a civil rights leader coming in and uniting Black America, it's dead. I don't think that's a tenable option anymore.
There was no way I could explain the ignorance and the lack of civility and the unchristian behavior that this country was exhibiting with the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. And I was crying, and I was upset, and I was angry, I was furious. And I got my husband's supper ready. He worked at Oliver at night at that time. And when he came home, I said, tomorrow, brown-eyed people are going to be on the top in my classroom, and blue-eyed people are going to be on the bottom.
See, prejudice. That's discrimination, right? Like, you can't counter discrimination with discrimination. You're just going to get what? More discrimination. That's it, right? And in a way, I think this is a hustle in a way, right? From Jane Elliott's standpoint, is that these people need to be needed. They need to be... These people, jobs exist only solely for the reason that prejudice exists. And if they just say, hey, we're going to change the target of prejudice now. It's bad to be prejudiced against Black people, but it's fine to be prejudiced against white people. White people are still facing prejudice. And then when it's 20, 50, 60, 80 years from now, when Black people today, their great-great-great-grandkids come out and they're like, a Jane Elliott like this one was going to come out and said, hey, white people are going to be in the front of the class and Black people will be in the back of the class, because look at all the years you Black people have been discriminated against, right? Yeah, white people used to do it to you, but now you're doing it to them, and now y'all doing it worse, right? Come on. This shouldn't be allowed anymore. But guess what? They're always guaranteed a job, no matter who's discriminating against who. No matter which group has a prejudice against another group, they'll always have a job. And this is the problem I have, and this is the conflict of interest I have against these people who are race hustlers. Because eventually, race, if you make race a criteria and you never challenge race as a criteria, because it's immutable traits, it's always going to exist, right? But if we get the conservative view, which is meritocracy, hey, meritocratic society, hey, it made the best person win, made the smartest person win. You're not smart because of your identity, right? You're smart as an individual, and it just so happened this individual is part of this group, right? That's how conservatives tend to look at society, right? If we teach colorblindness, this is why people like her, they hate colorblindness. Because if you remove the criteria where, hey, we don't judge people on their identity, it's hard for them to justify their own job. Because what prejudice is there if you can't judge someone based on the color of their skin? You only can have a prejudice based on their skill, their talents, their abilities. And if they don't make it, you say, hey, you don't have the right ability for this. You don't have the right talent for this, right? If you're a 4-5 point guard, it's going to be hard for you to make it to the NBA. You ain't gonna be like, oh, the NBA is discriminating against short people. Yeah, there's allowed to be prejudice against that. And that's why I have this idea that prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. That's not true. Prejudice is you judging someone based on something. Now, now there's certain prejudice that we accept as a society, and there's another prejudice that we don't accept as a society. And as a conservative, my argument is we shouldn't accept any prejudice based on identity. But if I have a prejudice where I say, hey, I don't date feminists, I'm allowed to have that prejudice. You may not agree with it, but I'm allowed to have that prejudice because I know what's best for me as an individual. For abstract ideas from a societal point of view, judging people on immutable traits is not right. Okay, I agree. But feminism is not a mutable trait. It's a mutable trait, sorry. You could choose to be a feminist or not. If you choose to be a feminist, I don't date you. Just like if a feminist say, hey, I don't date Christian men, she's allowed to have that prejudice as well, right? So who's the judge or who's the arbitrator of what is considered bad prejudice and good prejudice? That's the question I have as a conservative. I digress, though.
He said, Jane, you'll lose your job. I said, if I lose my job for teaching something they need to know, I don't want a teacher. So I went to school, the first student in my...
So I have a problem with she said that, because imagine if she was a Christian woman, she said, hey, they need to learn the Bible. If I get fired for that, they need, like, so be it. I don't want to teach anymore. You say that, oh, that's a selfish, self-centered, you're just trying to propagandize the kids. Well, this is the conservative argument against Jane Elliott. She was just trying to propagandize kids to see themselves as monsters in a way, right? Because this is propaganda. This is the start of white guilt. Because this happened, she did this test 52 years ago. Teaching people like, oh, the white people can be discriminated against, discriminatory against other people. Not saying that humans discriminate against other humans and that is bad. No, she didn't paint her message like that. She said, hey, one trait is going to judge another trait. And then she's going to use the guilt trip. Oh, people that look like you kids, they were doing this for centuries. So now it's the black people's turn. No, you can't. This is the whole concept. This is the whole fundamental stance of anti-racism, is that they try to make this idea that white people are inherently racist. That's a prejudice. That's like me saying black people are inherently criminals because black people, even black men, even though they only make up like 13% of the population, they're responsible for 50% of homicide murders. I can make that same argument, but people will say that's racist. Why are we not saying that's racist to assume based on someone's skin color that they're inherently racist? Right? Prejudice. Your actions don't match up your words. People are going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, he's saying such, we need to hear this in ourselves. We need more teachers like Jane Elliott. But look at the message she's preaching. She's preaching the right message, but look how she's implementing it. Look how she goes about it. The result creates more friction, more division, more prejudice. But people don't judge things on the results anymore. It seems like people judge things on their intentions, and that's my problem with Jane Elliott. Sorry.
My classroom came in. They said, hey, they shot that king last night. Why'd they shoot that king? I said, we're going to talk about that. And I asked those kids what they knew about black people. And they knew every negative stereotype that I had ever heard about.
From a guy that grew up in the hood. Sorry, I keep pausing it, but I need to put this point. I need to say my piece here. For a guy that grew up in the hood, if you ask black people the same thing about white people, you'll hear all the negative stereotypes. Oh, they're colonizers, they're this, they're racist, they're that. Oh, have you ever met a white person? A lot of them will say no, because when I grew up in the hood, there was barely any white people near me. So I know them damn for sure. None of these people ever met with a white person. The closest thing to a white person that people in my hood met were Hispanic people. That's it. But they'll have all these assumptions about white people, but they've never been associated with white people. Same argument. I can make the same argument, right? It's human nature. And to sit here and pretend, like, to sit here and pretend that only white people are discriminatory, as if you're trying to make it seem like black people are incapable of being like bad. When if you look at crime statistics, that's further from the truth. If you look at hate crime against Asians, for instance, let's take white people and black people out of it. If white people was more discriminatory than black people, who commits more hate crimes against Asian people, white or black? If you know your statistics, you know it's black people. So are black people prejudiced, right, based on her standards? Are black people operating on a commitment to emotional commitment to ignorance, right? You'll say yeah. I'll say yes. How you going to perpetrate 85% of interracial crimes, but then you want to claim that you're the victim of hate crimes? You're the biggest victim of hate crimes. Asians are the biggest victim of hate crime, and not because they're Asian. You know, Asians have on average a higher income. So if you're a thief, who you want to steal from? A poor person or a rich person? Right? That's behavior. That's circumstances. Right? I illustrated something that's not based on race. Right? Prejudice is part of human nature. Discrimination is part of human nature. Now, the criteria in which we discriminate is what we can judge as right or wrong. Discriminate on immutable traits? Well, from a personal level, I'm allowed to do that. If I say I don't want to date a Hispanic woman, that's my right to do so. But if I say I don't want to hire a Hispanic woman, that's where the problem comes in, right? There's levels to this. But to make this grandiose statement, oh, prejudice is just an emotional commitment to ignorance. Oh, you don't know Hispanic women, Kenny. That's why you want to discriminate against them. That's why you don't date them. Right? Black women do the same argument when white men say they don't want to date black women. But when black men say, I want to be the black queen, they gets cheered. But if a white man said the same thing for his race of woman, it's seen as racist. That's prejudice. How is one group of people allowed to have a standard and another isn't? I'm sorry, I've been ranting on a tangent. I'm going to let this video go for like 2 minutes straight. Hopefully I don't get copyrighted for it. And then I'll get my final thoughts.
About black people, and some that had never occurred to me. And I said, do you kids have any idea how it would feel to be something other than white in this country? No. Would you like to know? Yeah. It was like we've already gotten on spelling and handwriting. Keep this broad talking. We don't have to learn anything all day long. So I said, okay, today we're going to judge people by the color of their eyes. Brown-eyed kids are going to be on top the first day of this exercise. They said, what do you mean? I said, I mean, blue-eyed people aren't as smart as brown-eyed people. They aren't as clean as brown-eyed people. They aren't as civilized as brown-eyed people. And at that point, little brown-eyed Debbie, sitting in the front row, and this had only been 3 minutes, looked up at me and said, how come you're the teacher if you got them blue eyes? And I thought, oh, this is how this works, isn't it? Here, this little 8-year-old girl can attack her teacher who has been to college, finished high school, and she has the right to attack me now because she has the right color eyes and I have the wrong color eyes.
You can see she pretty much taught them how to discriminate against people based on some traits, based on physical traits. Right? That's all this is my argument from the beginning. All she did was switch it. She said, hey, this criteria is bad. You can't judge people of this criteria anymore. You can only judge people of this criteria. AKA, you can't judge black people on their prejudice, but you can judge white people on their prejudice. If Scott Adams come out and say, hey, there's a poll came out and only 55% of black people said it was okay to be white, let's not associate with them anymore. You can call him racist, but on the same breath, if a black person said, hey, white people are the biggest threat to black Americans and black Americans need to separate themselves from white America, people will applaud that and say, oh, go black power. Yes. We need to protect ourselves from these white people. Essentially, Scott Adams and black people black nationalists agree on the same thing, but one you call racist and one you don't. Because what? The color of their skin. So using prejudice to justify prejudice, to condemn prejudice. Like, it doesn't make sense. You say prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. So what are you ignorant of, Jane Elliott, or people of her ilk? What do you guys are ignorant of? That you don't understand that we're all human nature, like we're all humans, and based on human behavior, you get different results. If you're a violent human being, people don't want to be around you. But if it was a group of people that happen to commit 50% of the murders, people don't want to be around that group of people. Is that because of racism or is that because of their behavior? Let's go meritocracy. As a conservative, I see things based on merit, not based on your skin color, not based on your identity, right? I don't believe in none of this identity politics stuff because I succeed in spite of my identity. I succeeded in my life in spite of my preconceived disadvantages.
I couldn't believe what happened that day. A tall, blonde, beautiful, brilliant girl came into my room in February, reading at the 6th grade level in 3rd grade. She had never multiplied. I taught her how to multiply the first 15 minutes of math class. On the day she had the wrong color eyes, that brilliant little girl made mistakes in reading, made mistakes in spelling, and forgot how to multiply.
But that's CRT. CRT does the exact same thing. CRT, like they did a study where if you introduce CRT concepts to kids, it affects their ability to achieve in school, their self-esteem, which is their confidence, and their like it affects them physically. Like, oh, I can't focus, I can't work. Essentially, that's what she did. She messed up a whole group of kids doing this test, but she don't see the harm. She just see that, oh, this is a good thing. And these are the worst kind of people who actually think they're doing something good for you. I digress.
She came in from recess crying. I said, what's going on here? As she walked across the playground, 2 brown-eyed Debbies and a brown-eyed Cindy stepped up behind her, reached up, struck her across the back with her forearm, and when Carol turned around, Debbie said to her, now you have to apologize to me for getting in my way, because I'm better than you are. And Carol apologized and came in crying. No person of any age will ever leave my presence with those attitudes unchallenged. I can't change your attitude, but I can challenge your attitude, and you have to prove to me that so-called white people are superior to everybody else on the face of the earth, and you can't do it because it isn't true. People are wondering whether...
Oh, man, I might get in trouble for this one. So when she said the white people are superior than other groups of people and that's not physically true, yeah, you're right. It's not physically true. But if one nation says, hey, like, you know, who invented science? Who discovered this? Who discovered that? Who created this? Who invented that? Right? And likely than not, it's going to be a white person. Now, black people will sit here and claim that they were the first one to discover things and they got their stuff stolen. In my head, I'm like, I don't see if that was true. Why Africa ain't running the world? Why we don't got Wakanda in Africa? But you know, that's just my thoughts. Like, because at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. Your results speak more than your conclusions, your pretexts, and your intentions. That's how I just think it's based on outcome. If that was true, I need to see the result of that. But if it's not true, then your theory is wrong, sir. But you know, people don't like to test their assumptions anymore. They just want to go run with the narrative and they want to focus on convincing people to believe their narrative instead of convincing them based on their results, right? But I digress.
What she did 52 years ago should be relevant today.
Nope.
In 52 years, we should have solved this problem. I am so determined that we change the education system in this country. I am so determined that we change what we're educating people to believe.
I agree.
There's only one race on the face of the earth, and that's the human race.
I agree.
Once we get that into the heads of our legislators, we'll have a different kind of law written.
I agree.
Once we get that into the heads of the police, we'll have a different law enforcement.
No, that's not going to happen. I'll tell you why. As a black man, I'll tell you why. If let's say there was a new technology. Let's say Elon Musk created a bias thing, right? So you get this helmet and it converts your bias to normal levels, right? Hey, you don't have any racist prejudice, you don't have any sexism, you don't discriminate based on sexual orientation as long as you're wearing this helmet, right? It configures everything so that way you see people in a positive light. Does that change the fact that black men commit 50% of homicides in America? No, it doesn't. So when a person rolls up, when an officer rolls up, he still is going to be pulling over majority black people. Because black people are what? Committing most of the crimes. Because at the end of the day, police don't show up for no reason. They show up usually because someone called them there. And that is the inconvenient truth. The inconvenient truth is, even if we lived in a colorblind society, even if we lived with no racial bias in policing, black people will still be disproportionately arrested and will be in jail. Because at the end of the day, the police wasn't arresting people because they were black. Police was arresting people because they were breaking the law set by society. And as long as people break the law set in society, it's always going to be a them problem, not a police problem. That has been my biggest argument as a conservative. Actually, conservatives have been speaking like this since the beginning of these debates. That the criminal justice system isn't inherently racist. It's just black people tend to do certain actions and behaviors that breaks the law. Black people get turned down for loans because on average, black people have a lower credit score and a lower income than most people. Black people have a lower financially literacy rate than other groups of people. So with those combinations, are you set up to get a good loan? No, you're not. You're not even set up to get a loan or even to manage money correctly. This is why black people find themselves in debt a lot, especially black women. This is why they get evicted at a higher percentage than other women, because they spend a lot of money. Black women spend a lot of money, right? Don't have any financial literacy rate because of the environment they're born in. So you don't know how to manage money. You make a lower income on average compared to other groups of women. Of course, you're going to get evicted more than other groups of women. But, they want to make it a race thing, a sex thing. No, it's not. It's your behavior. It's your decision making. It's your ability to manage your resources. That's what's causing you to be in there. Personal responsibility, conservatism. This is my argument. This is why I don't agree with James Elliott's assessment here. Is that humans, we're a pattern recognition creature. We recognize patterns. We look things based on our observation. And you telling us you shouldn't perceive things this way is not going to fix it. This is why these problems still exist today. But yeah, let's finish out the last 39 seconds of this video and then I give my final thoughts.
Once we get that into the heads of educators, we'll have different education. We thought we stopped Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream by killing him. His dream is more alive now than it was when he was living, and you have proof of it by what's going on in every major city in the United States of America right now. Racism isn't about skin color. It's about white fear of different kinds of people. It's not skin color that's the problem. The skin color isn't the problem. You can't change skin color. Oh, you can change attitudes.
Wow. Sorry, guys, I laughed at that last part because I find it so ridiculous. She said racism isn't about skin color, but then comes out to say white fear. Huh? That's racist, bro. Anytime someone says they want to cure racism, but they use a race reference, so you want to tell me, so this is me basing things on outcomes, not on your intentions, not on my assumptions, on outcomes. Okay, you're saying white people is white fear of other people that don't look like them. That's what's driving racism in our country today. Okay, let's look at the stats then. Interracial crime, 85% of the perpetrators are black. Only 15% of the instances of interracial crime deals with a white perpetrator. Damn. That kind of hurts your argument there, right? Asian people, which is, in my view, that's the minority group that challenges the white assumption of superiority than any other group in America. Black people commit more hate crimes against Asian people than white people do. But it's white people that's the problem. No, just take out racial language, take out race, stop referencing race in all your attitudes, and you guys would have had a better argument. But no, you have to make white people the boogeyman for some reason. And this is all it is. All you did was change the condition of prejudice. All you said is society, we're not allowed to be prejudiced against black people, but you're allowed to be prejudiced against white people. And that's what's happening now. You're essentially transitioning white people from being first-class citizens into second-class citizens and transitioning black people from being treated as first-class citizens into being some pedestal. And that's what's happening right now. We're the least racist period in American history today. Yet we're pushing racism at an all-time high and we're calling it something else. Semantics. That's all this is. But hey, you can disagree with me, but this is just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree with me about Jane Elliott? You don't agree with me about Jane Elliott? Let me know your comments in the comment section below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I really do appreciate you guys from watching to the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.